I thought on this Memorial Day weekend Saturday we would read from Stephen Crane's outstanding novel, The Red Badge of Courage, which of course I first read in the eighth grade. I remember our eighth grade teacher, Mr. Weinman, talking about it rhapsodically. Let me just read from the very beginning. The cold passed reluctantly from the earth, and the retiring fogs revealed an army stretched out on the hills, resting. As the landscape changed from brown to green, the army awakened and began to tremble with eagerness at the noise of rumors. It cast its eyes upon the roads, which were growing from long troughs of liquid mud to proper thoroughfares. A river, amber-tinted in the shadow of its banks, purled at the army's feet, and at night, when the stream had become of a sorrowful blackness, one could see across it the red, eye-like gleam of hostile campfires set up in the low brows of distant hills. This was the U.S. Civil War, of course. Once a certain tall soldier developed virtues and went resolutely to wash his shirt. Either Terry Jacobson and Stephanie Robinson. He came flying back from a brook, waving his garment banner-like. He was swelled with a tale he had heard from a reliable friend who had heard it from a truthful cavalryman who had heard it from his trustworthy brother, one of the orderlies at division headquarters, either Carla, either Gail Christensen. He adopted the important air of a herald in red and gold. "We're going to move tomorrow, sure," he said pompously to a group in the company street. "We're going way up a river, cut across and come around behind them." To his attentive audience, he drew a loud and elaborate plan of a very brilliant campaign. When he finished, the blue-clothed men scattered into small arguing groups between the rows of squat brown huts. A teamster had been dancing upon a cracker box with the hilarious encouragement of 20 soldiers was deserted. Heather Rita Mullen. He sat mournfully down, smoke drifted lazily from a multitude of quaint chimneys. "It's a lie, that's all it is." "A thundering lie," said another private loudly. His smooth face was flushed, and his hands were thrust sulkily into his trousers pockets. He took the matter as an affront to him. "I don't believe the darned old army's ever going to move. We're set. I've got to move 8 times in the last 2 weeks, and we ain't moved yet." The tall soldier felt called upon to defend the truth of a rumor he himself had introduced. He and the loud one came near to fighting over it. The corporal began to swear before the assemblage. He had just put a costly board floor in his house, he said. During the early spring, he had refrained from adding extensively to the comfort of his environment because he felt the army might start on the march at any moment. Of late, however, he had been impressed that they were in a sort of eternal camp. Many of the men engaged in a spirited debate. One outlined in a peculiarly lucid manner all the plans of the commanding general. He was opposed by men who advocated that there were other plans of campaign. They clamored at each other, numbers making futile bids for the popular attention. Meanwhile, the soldier who had fetched the rumor bustled with much importance. He was continually assailed by questions. "What's up, Jim? The army's going to move. And what you talking about? How you know it is?" "Well, you can believe me or not. Just as you like. I don't care a hang." There was much food for thought in the manner in which he replied. He came near to convincing them by disdaining to produce proofs. They grew much excited over it. There was a youthful private who listened with eager ears to the words of the tall soldier and to the varied comments of his comrades. After receiving a fill of discussions concerning marches and attacks, he went to his hut and crawled through an intricate hole that served it as a door. He wished to be alone with some new thoughts that had lately come to him. He lay down on a wide bunk that stretched across the end of the room. and the other end cracker boxes were made to serve as furniture. They were grouped about the fireplace. A picture from an illustrated weekly was upon the log walls, and 3 rifles were parallel on pegs. Equipment hung on handy projections, and some tin dishes lay upon a small pile of firewood. Folded tent was serving as a roof. The sunlight, without beating upon it, made it glow like a light yellow shade. Small windows shot an oblique square of white light upon the cluttered floor. The smoke from the fire at times neglected the clay chimney and breathed into the room. This flimsy chimney of clay and sticks made endless threats to set ablaze the whole establishment. The youth was in a little trance of astonishment. So they were at last going to battle. On the morrow, perhaps there would be a battle, and he would be in it. For a time he was obliged to labor to make himself believe. He would not accept with assurance an omen that he was about to mingle into one of those great affairs of the earth. The movie Laurie Dominic is called Pressure. He had, of course, dreamed of battles all of his life, of vague and bloody conflicts that had thrilled him with their sweep and fire. In visions he had seen himself in many struggles. He had imagined people secure in the shadow of his eagle-eyed prowess, but awake, he had regarded battles as crimson blotches on the pages of the past. He had put them as things of the bygone, with his thought images of heavy crowns and high castles. There was a portion of the world's history which he had regarded as the time of wars, but it, he thought, had been long gone over the horizon and had disappeared forever. From his home, his youthful eyes had looked upon the war in his own country with distrust. It must be some sort of play affair. He had long despaired of witnessing a Greek-like struggle. Such would be no more, he had said. Men were better or more timid than they had been. Struggle and secular and religious education had effaced the throat-grappling instinct, or else firm finance held in check the passions. Oh, he had burned several times to enlist. Tales of great movement shook the land. They might not be distinctly Homeric, but there seemed to be so much glory in them. He had read of marches, sieges, conflicts, and he had longed to see it all. His busy mind had drawn for him large pictures, extravagant in color, lurid with breathless deeds. But his mother had discouraged him. She had affected to look with some contempt upon the quality of his war ardor and patriotism. She could calmly seat herself and with no apparent difficulty give him many hundreds of reasons why he was of vastly more importance on the farm than on the field of battle. She had certain ways of expression that told him that her statements on the subject came from a deep conviction. Moreover, on her side was his belief that her ethical motive in the argument was impregnable. At last, however, he had made firm rebellion against this yellow light thrown upon the color of his ambitions. The newspapers, the gossip of the village, his own picturings had aroused him to an uncheckable degree. They were, in truth, fighting finely down there. Almost every day the newspapers printed accounts of a decisive victory. One night, as he lay in bed, the winds had carried into the clanging of the church bell as some enthusiast jerked the rope frenetically to tell the twisted news of a great battle. The voice of the people rejoicing in the night had made him shiver in a prolonged ecstasy of excitement. Later he had gone down to his mother's room and had spoken thus, "Ma, I'm going to enlist." "Henry, don't you be a fool," his mother had replied. She had then covered her face with the quilt. There was an end to the matter for that night. Nevertheless, the next morning he had gone to a town that was near his mother's farm and had enlisted in a company that was forming there. When he had returned home, his mother was milking the brindle cow. 4 others stood waiting. "Ma, I've enlisted," he said to her diffidently. There was a short silence. "The Lord's will be done, Henry," she had finally replied, and had then continued to milk the brindle cow. When he had stood in the doorway with his soldier's clothes on his back, and with the light of excitement and expectancy in his eyes almost defeating the glow of regret for the home bonds, he had seen 2 tears leaving their trails on his mother's scarred cheeks. Still, she had disappointed him by saying nothing whatever about returning with his shield or on it. He had privately primed himself for a beautiful scene. He had prepared certain sequences which he thought could be used with touching effect. But his mother's words destroyed his plans. She had doggedly peeled potatoes and addressed him as follows: "You watch out, Henry, and take good care of yourself in this here fighting business. You watch out and take good care of yourself. Don't go thinking you can lick the whole rebel army at the start, because you can't. You're just one little fellow amongst a hull of a lot of others, and you got to keep quiet and do what they tell you. Oh, I know how you are, Henry. I've knit you 8 pair of socks, Henry, and I've put in all your best shirts because I want my boy to be just as warm and comfortable as anybody in the army. Whenever they get holes in them, I want you to send them right away back to me so I can darn them. And always be careful and choose your company. Lots of bad men in the army, Henry. The army makes them wild, and they like nothing better than the job of leading a young feller off like you, as ain't never been away from home much, and has allus a mother and a learning them to drink and swear. Keep clear of those folks, Henry. I don't want you to ever do anything, Henry, that you would be shamed to let me know about. Just think as if I was a watching you. Yeah. To keep that in your mind always, I guess you'll all come out about right. And you must always remember your father, too, child, and remember he never drunk a drop of liquor in his life, and he seldom swore a cross oath. I don't know what else to tell you, Henry, excepting that you must never do no shirking, child, on my account. If so be a time comes when you have to be killed or do a mean thing, why, Henry, don't think of anything except what's right, because there's many a woman has to bear up against such things in these times, and the Lord'll take care of all of us. Don't forget about the socks and the shirts, child. And put a cup of blackberry jam with your bundle, because I know you'll like it above all things. Goodbye, Henry. Watch out and be a good boy. I might read some more of that tomorrow. What do you think?
Yes, no, it's wonderful.
The opening of Stephen Green's The Red Badge of Courage. I am coughing a little. So thanks for being with us tonight on our open book. Greetings to all of our new names. I thought that too, Mary Beth. I thought that too. For this weekend, it's a good idea. Really? Well, we can do something about that. So thanks very much for being with us. Hi there, Carla. Hi there, Stephanie Robinson. Thanks very much for being with us tonight. My pleasure, Joan Denny. Our pleasure on our open book. And we'll see you later. Take care. Bye-bye.